Hey, this is Becoming a Household Name, and I'm your host, Jody J. Sperling. Woo! Ups and downs. That is the theme of this week. Pretty much my life a lot of times, and I imagine you as an author who is doing everything you can to get your books out in front of more readers. I want to start out with the one that I'm most frustrated about because I have some ownership in the quagmire, the problem that I'm currently experiencing. So, the biggest comic expo that I will be going to between now and Christmas is starting tomorrow. I'm recording this right now on Thursday. You'll be hearing it in a few hours from now after I get it all edited and finished recording and everything. But I ordered some replenishments of book 2 of the Luke and Time Mysteries and book 4 of the Luke and Time Mysteries back on October 26th. I ordered those through Amazon's KDP thing. Pretty much any author who is independent, self-published is probably using KDP most of the time. It just makes sense because it's a print-on-demand system and the quality is good enough that yeah, it's the way to go. If you're not using KDP, I'd love to hear what you are using. Go ahead and shoot me an email, a text message. My information is out there. I know it is because I was getting bombarded by election content all last month. I mean, it was crazy. So everybody has my phone number. Everybody has my email address, social security number, whatever. You've all got it. So just shoot me a note somewhere. Let me know if you're using something else besides KDP that's affordable because I am angry. I ordered on the 26th of October. Those books haven't been printed. They haven't been shipped, nothing. They're not going to arrive. They're supposed to arrive by the 10th, which theoretically, if they were printed and shipped today, could still happen. But I think they're going to miss their shipping window. The big problem is that I didn't give myself enough time to make sure I had replenishments. I am completely sold out on book 2 and book 4 going into the biggest comic expo between now and Christmas. And frankly, it's probably the biggest expo I've been to outside of Denver FanX in July. So it's a really big deal. And I'm going in with books 1, books 3, about 10 copies of Buckshot Blast and the Goldfish Getaway, 3 copies of Bogey, and 30 or so copies of Mount McJonesy and the Butterfly Dragon. So what does that mean? It means I failed to prepare and I'm going to miss out on book sales because of it. Am I really, really angry? Well, yeah, darn it, I am really angry. Is it going to be okay? Yes, it's going to be okay. And so for the sake of you listening right now who are bound to make some mistakes, maybe not this boneheaded of a mistake, but who are going to make some mistakes, you're going to get through it. And I want to be transparent and let you know I make these mistakes. I've been doing this full time now for about a year. In fact, next week will be my 1-year anniversary of doing these shows. And that's not counting Cincinnati, where I learned from David and Lydia Scherer. If you count Cincinnati, then it's been a little over a year. But I didn't sell any of my own books. I was strictly learning from them at that point. So I'm going to Twin Cities Con in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I'm not firing on all cylinders. That is going to be a challenge for me. It's going to be a frustration, but we're going to make the best of it. I'm still going to sell a lot of the 9 Lives of Marva DeLonghi. I have plenty of copies of that. I'm sure I'll sell some 24/7 of a Russian named Ruskov and Buckshot Blast and the Goldfish Getaway, Stories of Bogey. It's going to be good. We're going to do good. It's going to be great. And I'm going to meet some new readers, and I'm excited. Let's dive in now to the social media aspect of what I've been able to do to grow and get some more attention, because I think that is something that continues to provide value for you. And again, the transparency element lets you know how well is this working for somebody who's spending an inordinate amount of time doing it. So on Instagram, as of this very moment I'm recording, I have 740 followers. So in terms of actual follower growth, I had my best week so far of total follower growth. That had to do with several variables. I was in Peoria last weekend doing the QuadCon at the Northwoods Mall, and I had better traffic there than Des Moines. I had double the book sales, plus some, just on the first day alone. So I sold 29 copies of books on Saturday. Then Sunday I sold another 18. So not the greatest show, but it was okay. Paid for everything. I came back with a couple $100 of profit after all of expenses. So good. Okay, we're fine. Nobody's gonna make a living doing that kind of a show, but I'm okay with it. The other thing though is that I really pitched to follow on Instagram, even people who bought the book. So it wasn't just like, oh, do you have a card? And then I'd be like, no, but you can follow me on Instagram. When I sold a book, I would say to people, hey, if you want to keep up with me, a really easy way to do it is to follow along on Instagram. I've got this QR code. So I got a lot more doing that than I had in previous weeks. I'll continue to do that at Twin Cities Con, and going forward is actually asking people, if you use Instagram, you should follow me, and asking for that. I'm going to talk a little bit later in this episode about what I think in terms of followers and what's happening there, because I do have some thoughts. But I also continued to do the same thing, where I would spend a portion of my day just finding accounts that were in my wheelhouse, the people that those accounts were following, and then going and looking at those followers, commenting on their posts, and really focusing in on providing value and connection, and then giving a follow, looking for that follow back. Just like in past weeks, I do continue to call followers. So if I follow somebody and it's been over a week and I don't get the follow back, I am unfollowing to try to keep my ratios good. Every time I say that, I feel like a little bit of a shitbag, but I just understand the importance of metrics and visibility and what it looks like. And so you want to be more appealing than you are needy. It's a tricky way to get people to think that you're more valuable than you value. I don't know how to say that. I value the crap out of you guys. I really do. And that's the truth. I don't think, this is a little bit of a tangent. I don't think that I would still be recording this podcast if I hadn't seen steady, continuous growth of listeners. Partly because that would tell me that whatever I'm putting out into the world is not giving value to somebody else, and so it's a waste of my time. And partly because growth is fuel and food. And I'm sure, in fact, I think I live this a little bit, but I'm sure that there are people out there who are able to persist in the face of stagnation. I was going to say stagnancy. I want to just create words sometimes. And I'm sure that there are people who persist even through loss. I don't know if I'm that kind of person. I think that I need some kind of fuel to tell me like, hey, we're growing, things are getting better. Further tangent on a tangent. I go sprinting pretty much every day. I miss probably an average of 3 days a month sprinting right now. And that means I'm going down to the local track where we have our football field, and I get on the starting line and I run as fast as I can. I'm not going to say as far as I can, because I oftentimes stop sprinting when I feel myself slowing down a little bit. So I max effort as far as I can. And then when max effort is slowing down, then I kind of let the sprint end. But anywhere between let's say between 40 yards and 120 yards would be about the average length of a sprint. And I'm doing 6 of those a day right now. I used to be doing 4 a day. I bumped it up and I make myself do 6 every day. And one thing I have noticed is that I'm not so winded even after doing the longer sprints. So I need to start pushing myself to maybe add in a 7th or sprint longer distances. I do need to push myself. I haven't been pushing quite as hard. But the reason I say that and go on this tangent is because for me, I, again, would not be sprinting if I hadn't noticed gains in my speed and my ability. Those 2 things inspire me to keep doing it. And so I don't know. Again, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear, like, do you do things in your life even when you feel like it's at a complete standstill, or do you need to see growth? Because maybe I want to record an episode and find somebody to interview and talk about the connections between growth and inspiration. And maybe there's something really important about how we measure what's happening. And maybe I would benefit and you would benefit from tracking growth as much as possible so that you can see things are happening. It's especially difficult. And let me be honest, in the beginning, when this podcast was called Create Collaborate, way back in the day now, there really wasn't much growth at all. I was excited to get 15 downloads on an episode. And it went on like that for a fair amount of time, where I wasn't seeing more than about 15 or so downloads an episode, and episodes completely died. Like, I would record an episode, it would get its 15 or 20 downloads, and it would be gone. At this point, I am fortunate enough to be looking at about 1,000 downloads within the first 7 days that the episode goes live. And those episodes continue to get more downloads as time goes by. I see episodes as old as 90 days getting consistent downloads now. And that tells me that there are people talking about it, that it's interesting to my audience and other authors and writers. And I'm excited to see that this is filling a void for some people. That keeps me moving forward. But there was a very long time where I plateaued around 100 downloads. That was years where 100 downloads for an episode was really the average. And then there was a massive spike just about 6 months ago. And that has kind of plateaued out now, but like real movement. And this isn't me tooting my horn, because listen, 1,000 downloads per 7 days on an episode isn't even enough that advertisers are asking me to include spots for their products, which it won't take you very far to go back and see. I was doing some experimenting with asking people to be paid contributors to the podcast. I'd still love if you would do that, and saying, I don't want to advertise, but here's another truth about this process. One way or another, I have to bring money into the machine. And so if I do eventually get advertisers like Athletic Greens, or what's that really popular one right now that it's the online therapy. I can't think of what they're called. Gosh, I've heard enough ads by them. It should roll right off the tongue. But any of those, if they were to come to me and say, hey, we'd like you to do a promotion, you bet. At this point, I'm going to do it, because any way I can bring money into the machine enables me to book more shows, enables me to have more books to sell. It enables me to maybe advertise this show again. I haven't been doing any advertising for this show at all. It's all been word of mouth and really just committing to the consistency aspect of it. It's been growing on its own. You know that I used to advertise for this show in several different ways. I've talked about that. So I'll link in the show notes if you're interested in the podcast element of how to grow through advertising. I have some episodes on that. Don't need to talk about it here. But yeah, I mean, it's just the ecosystem of doing this means I have to make money. And I guess if there's somebody out there who's upset that I am actively intending to make money on my podcast, I'd love to hear why that bothers you. But I think I had this assumption that it was bothersome to advertise. And that just simply is silliness. So I'm working on moving past that. Really, this is me just confessing some of my fears and telling you in a very roundabout way that I feel worthless. I don't feel like I have the worth. And so anytime I try to make money, then there's the voice in the back of my head saying, like, you're worthless. Why would you try to make money? There's nothing of value here. Why would you try to confuse people or deceive people into thinking that there is value here? That's a self-talk thing that I could definitely use a lot of work in getting over. I think a lot about Dr. Tara Swart-Bieber and her work on manifestation. She does science-backed podcasts and teaches all about the art of manifestation, not as like the woo-woo, feel-good, The Secret type of thing, which I think there's a place for that. I've read that book probably more than any other book, to be honest. I think that there's real power in bringing positivity and intention to everything that we do. And I think that if you cannot bring yourself into that uncomfortable place of having positivity and intention, that you're probably fighting a battle that's at least going to be much harder than it needs to be. And it's already really damn hard. So, okay, I went off on a whole bunch of tangents, and that was all just to say growth seems to be a necessary part of the pie if you want to have sustainability and keep moving forward. So figure out how to track it. Okay, so I have 740 followers on Instagram as of this very moment. The most recent reels that I've done, one has 829 views, another has 440. The one before that has 2,839. The one before that is 2,218, 497, 338, 2,334, 2,595. So in terms of creating reels that are targeted toward my audience, I have seen significant regression in my reach. And that leads me to the part of this conversation that I don't have answers for, but I do want to highlight, which is if my follower growth is increasing, and it is, how does that fit with the reach that my reels are getting? So right now, I know that a reel is going to do better if quickly I see that the ratio of non-followers seeing the content is massively skewed to the number of followers. So oftentimes with a reel that'll go to the 2,000 plus views, you will see that it's 95% non-followers have seen the content versus 5% of your followers. And that I think is great. But it also means that some of those interactions are coming from non-followers. And I want to know, how do I grow the followers in such a way that they're interested in the content that I'm providing, and it creates a self-sustaining loop? That would be the ideal thing here, is that when I send out a post, when I send out a reel, that my followers are seeing it, that they're interested in it, that it's targeted to the things they're thinking about and caring about, and then they're talking and communicating. It seems to me more likely that a follower is going to stop and comment, that they're going to recognize me, they're going to know me, they're going to interact with me, and you're going to start building relationships. I don't see a lot of evidence of that happening. One gentleman that has been really supportive and super kind, and that I'm grateful for, is Mark Avery. And he's let me know that he's appreciating the content, and that's been really cool. I think, to the best of my knowledge, I found him through this process. So that's exciting, and I want to see more of that. Not because it feels good, which it does, dopamine, bing, but also because it tells me that my approach is good. So that's the question right now, is how do you take the effort that you put in to gaining a follower and then creating from that more conversation, more value, more purposefulness? It's not worth doing this without that purposeful, in-depth conversation. My goal is that this podcast gets to a place where it becomes a hub or a stop for authors who are on a similar journey, where you can have conversation, where you can see those reels and be involved. Furthermore, especially where it's concerned with Instagram, I want it to be a place where readers stop and they, this is going to sound like I'm just stroking my own ego, but the goal is to get people to be like, Jody, you have the funniest take on being an author. Jody, you have the funniest take on what it looks like to create a story. Jody, you have the best insights on how to build this world. Those are the kind of things, not because I want the ego, but because it tells me that I'm connecting with the thought process of the readers, of the writers, and of the community. I want to be connecting with, feeling the pulse of, and really deeply engaging with what matters. So I'm trying to think from the perspective of a reader, what's the sort of content that I would absolutely adore from an author, and think like, that person is now even more valuable in my estimation because they create great content outside of their novels. So recently I stumbled into the book Such Sharp Teeth. I always second guess myself. I'm positive it's Such Sharp Teeth, but I always want to say What Sharp Teeth. It's a book by an author named Rachel Harrison. And I saw it through Instagram, from somebody's Bookstagram account, and I put a hold on it through my library. And when it came through, I read it. And it was one of those books. This doesn't happen to me all that often, though it's been happening more because of Instagram. I'll circle back to that as well. That I intentionally realigned a day so that I could just keep listening. So a day that I wasn't planning on doing a whole bunch of house chores, suddenly I decided we need to do a deep mop and a deep sweep, and we need to get everything folded and washed, and like literally spent a whole day doing chores. My wife loved me when she got home from work. The house looked glorious, but really for me, it was, I needed to read that book. And I also then recommended the book to my wife because there were elements of a romance novel in it. It was a horror book with a great deal of humor, and it had that romantic spin to it. And I loved the book so much. So then quickly I went and got another book by Rachel Harrison, The Return. Similar experience. Luckily, I was already driving to Peoria when I ran into that book. And so I was able to listen to it essentially in two chunks on the drive out and the drive back. Cannot say enough how much I love that book. And then I developed the, author crush. And I was like, I want to know everything about her. I want to see what she's doing on social media. I want to see like the world that she's created. And she's super active on Instagram. She lets people know where she's at. She posts pictures of her out drinking martinis and hanging out with her friends and her husband. And, she's very much active. But when I was thinking about her Instagram, I was realizing there isn't much there for me to connect to as a reader as I think I want for myself. But she's doing better than I am. She's putting pictures of herself out in the world doing things. And I need to borrow from her or to appropriate from her her ability to show herself in her natural environment, I guess. In terms of like, what does it look like to be out there on the road? I think I do one post a week often, and it's sort of an afterthought. And so I'll take a picture of me sitting at a Starbucks, and I'll take a picture of the view from my Starbucks, and I'll post something about it. I don't really think it's very high quality. I need to up the quality of those posts. I need to make them more frequent, so you get a slice in the life. And maybe those posts don't have to perform really well, but they're a pinpoint for people who come and see what I'm doing, because I really have been focusing on using Reels as basically a meme. So I find one that I like, I give it a good caption, try to write something insightful about it, and then send that out into the world. But essentially, if you come to my Instagram page, the vast majority of what's there is focused on somebody else's property, something they've created that I have appropriated for my own uses. I need to focus on swinging that balance a little bit. And that's something I've been thinking a great deal about the last couple of weeks when I was feeling discouraged. The growth is too slow. I'm not gaining enough new followers quickly. I'm not selling enough books digitally, which let's go ahead and just put a knife in my heart on that one. I have no digital sales this week. So out of the last 5 weeks, I have had digital sales 3 of the 5 weeks, and 2 I've goose egged. I need to fix that. There is zero pathway to the kind of impact that I want to have, to be a household name, to have a bestseller at any meaningful level if I can't figure out digital sales. I was very tempted to look back into advertising my books through the Ammo program again, because I know that I can get digital sales through Ammo. I don't yet know that I can get digital sales through Ammo profitably at the level of education I have on creating compelling content. So I'm still sort of waiting. I'm in this limbo period, this kind of in between where I haven't created something that people have cared enough about that organically it's gotten some good reach. And that's where I need to put my focus. That is 100% where I need to put my focus, is more organic content that I am creating, that I'm the focus of, and then figuring out how to marry that with people's interests. I want to confess, and I don't know that this is true, but I've been thinking to myself, I have a certain skill set. I think, and I've heard this from enough people that I think that this is just true. It's not, anyways, I feel like I've stroked my ego a couple of times and there's really not much to stroke in the first place. But if I were to turn my attention toward finance or similar topics, real estate, insurance, any of those 3 topics, I think I could gain traction incredibly quickly. I know how to speak deeply about finance. I know how to speak deeply about real estate. I know how to speak deeply about insurance. And all 3 of those things at some level have multiple intersections of people groups that I think I could quickly build an excited, engaged group around. And I think I could make a lot of money doing it. I know I made a lot of money doing real estate, and I never applied any of that to the social media landscape. I think the knowledge I have alone is actually worth doing, some kind of course or some kind of program. I think I could quickly build out something that would be financially successful. I don't know how to tap into those strengths in such a way that they create sales of my books. And that's what this is all about. It's trying to figure out, how do I sell the thing that I have that I want to sell? I don't need to make millions of dollars right now. I don't need to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would be quite delighted to profit tens of thousands of dollars. That would be a moment for me where I could take a deep breath and say, the level of contribution that I'm bringing to my family is such that I can continue to just go. But there's a feeling every single week right now of desperation. I'm not getting the digital sales. And so I have to depend on this weekend where I'm going to be in Minneapolis, where I'm going to be in Peoria, where I'm going to be in Des Moines. And if things don't go well, I'm not contributing. I'm not pitching in. I'm not adding. And that is my deepest desire, guys, is all of this. And what I want so much is to know as the day is closing out that I was a contributor to my family, that my kids can look at me and say, our pop busts his ass and it's valuable. Right now, they can say, our pop busts his ass, but is it really valuable? I didn't expect to go here, but this is something I've been thinking a lot about, and it drives my, not desire, because it's certainly not a desire, but it drives the intensity of thinking maybe I should just throw in the white flag. And I really struggle with those thoughts because I can't even get to a place where I'm just in the green. And we're coming quickly to the 5-year mark. So all of this really started in earnest in 2019. And so we're getting close to having been on this journey for 5 years, and I don't have all that much to show for it. Down the road, do I want to be a bestseller? Of course. Down the road, do I want to make millions of dollars as a novelist? Most definitely. Do I think that that's possible? I do believe that it's possible. There are some people out there who have said, like, they'll look at the really successful authors, they'll look at the Rachel Harrisons, the Grady Hendrixes, and they will say, like, if they are selling hundreds of thousands of copies, then there's a way to do it. And so I know I can do it. I don't know if I've connected that deeply yet, where I really feel that way. When I look at Rachel Harrison, I think that there's a degree of envy, a degree of jealousy. I use those words maybe in a different way than some people because I wish only the best for her. Her talent is incredible. Her ability to build characters and tell compelling stories and be funny is so awesome. I have profited richly from reading her books and then, looking through her social media and figuring out what she's doing and trying to bring it into my own world. I've profited on that, and I want her to continue to do really well. Grady Hendrix, same thing. I mean, We Sold Our Souls is such a powerful book. I still think about scenes from that book on a daily basis right now, and it was well over a month that I read it a month ago. I have bought 2 of his books. I had to buy a book yesterday because I was like, I just need more Grady Hendrix in my life. And so when I say jealousy, it's they are living the life that I want to be living, at least to the external ways that I'm able to see it. They're reaching the kind of audience that I want to reach, and I want that. I don't want that at their expense. I don't want them to fail so that I can succeed. I want them to continue to succeed and for me to succeed at that level. So that's how I define jealousy and envy, is they've got something I want. And if that's a problem, I'm really sorry. So in closing out, what I want to do is I want to talk about how I'm going to shift going forward. I'm going to shift. I'm going to make content this week where I'm at the center of the reel. And even if I see a drawback, which doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing the other reels. It just means I'm going to be focusing on making reels for me, where I'm at the center. And I'm going to be playing with different ways to do that, to see what I can create. Because without learning that process of me being the center of the reel, I can't ever advertise, and I can't build the kind of community that I need to be of interest. Great if I can meme well, that's awesome. I think I will continue to see follower growth through meming well, and I might continue to get better at it, and so the growth will exponentially speed up. But I think if I don't put the energy and effort into me being a part of the reel, that's the point where I sacrifice just metrics for valuable input, valuable output. Yeah, that's what I've got for you. I really hope that you have a wonderful weekend. If you happen to be in Minneapolis, St. Paul, go ahead and drop by the Twin Cities Con, and I'll give you books 1 and 3. Can't give you book 2. So sorry. Until next time.
Becoming a household name won't happen overnight, but with your help, it can happen for me or for anyone you know who's on this journey. If you liked what you heard today, would you consider sharing this podcast with someone you know would love it too? Word of mouth is the single biggest difference maker for a dreamer's outcome. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.